Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Vino Frankel, A Taste of Sculpterra. Happy to be back. This is our second episode. We recorded last week, and now we're back, so I'm happy to do it. Again, this is a wine podcast where I talk about my experiences as a winemaker, grape grower, things in the tasting room. It's a lot of information, a lot of fun. So just read the description of the show again, because I know this is only the second episode. So just keep everyone on the same page here. So it's learn, have fun, and be entertained with Paul Frankel of Sculpterra Winery as he explores everything wine. From grape to bottle, Paul shares his 17 years of winemaking experience in the growing Paso Robles wine region. Each show features special guests, co-hosts, an eclectic group of industry professionals, wine snobs, wine lovers, restaurant owners, marketing personalities, and Paul's personal friends. Take a deep dive into Paul's method and madness as he embarks on the journey to make the best wines possible. Learn about Sculpterra's past, present, and future. Don't be shy. Ask questions. Comment below. Please like the video, subscribe, and pass the video around. Okay, so as you know, I've been talking, this last episode, I talked about how we're going to have a different co-host for each episode. Today, I've got our assistant tasting room manager. His name is Darren Brown. Darren, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm just, when I've talked about and decided to have a podcast, I instantly thought of you because you are passionate about wine. I've seen you, tear wine apart, look deeply into why a wine is the way it is. You've written really helpful handbooks in the tasting room that show every process of the grape growing and winemaking. You're a photographer, and you've taken pictures of me doing the winemaking process and the grapes and the vines, and again, the different stages of the grape growing season, which is awesome. And over the years, you've become our wine educator, which I think every tasting room needs someone like that the employees can come to and say, hey, what is a clone? What does the soil have to do with anything? And having you on staff is incredible that you're passionate about all the details about wine. You were hired back in 2015. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's great is I remember that you started out as a fan, and I think that's the way that it should be. You like a company, you like a business, you like what they're doing, and then you're thinking, you know what, maybe I can work for them. And like you said, you started working on Sundays, and you took more responsibilities. You started taking more time, started working more and more. But I remember one really fun experience before we get to your story in just a little bit. I'm gonna have Darren share his wine story, but I remember I think it was 2016 or 2015, where we did a rosé tasting, where it was myself and Darren and his wife Jamie, and I had them try rosé wines that I had just made, which we do Grenache, Mourvedre, and Syrah. We have 2 lots of Grenache, so it was four rosés total. But what was really great with this experience is we tried the rosé from those grapes, but also the counterpart, the Grenache regular, the Syrah by itself, the Mourvedre. So the rosé that it was made from, we tried the rosé, but we also went back and tried what was left, which made the regular wine. So it was essentially a set of wines: 2 Grenaches, 2 Mourvedres, and the Syrah rosé and the regular Syrah. But what's great about this is we got to try the rosé and experience how it was, tons of fruit and supple and crisp and refreshing. And then the counterpart that was going to be made into our Statuesque blend or our Rhone blend, to see, what the effect of stealing the juice to make rosé would have on the regular wine. So just a really fun experience. And I saw back then how much you appreciated it, of something that people don't normally get to experience. Again, the rosé that we make, it always gets blended together. So those 3 grapes eventually get combined. and bottled as one wine. But in this experience, we were trying them all individually, and just really special, really cool. So back then I saw your excitement, your passion, and how much you enjoyed looking at wines to that depth. So if you could, Darren, if you could share, how you got into wine. I know you're from England, which is cool, which is awesome, because you've had a different upbringing and a different, you came from a different place altogether. So yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the wine business.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess I was introduced to wine back in the 90s. Teenager back then, it was legal. It's okay. So I was probably 16, 17, and my parents would drink Chardonnay with roast chicken, because it seems to be the law in England. You have roast chicken every Sunday. So we were drinking buttery Chardonnay, and that's all I kind of liked for a while. We try other wines, and they weren't really for me. And then eventually, as happens, your tastes change. I had my first kind of red wine epiphany with a Chilean Merlot and a lasagna back in the late 90s. And it kind of clicked. It was, soft reds were my kind of thing. So shortly after that, I was tasked with planning trips to Europe. My parents and I had motorcycles, and we would put our bikes on the ferry, travel down to Spain, come back from France a few weeks later. And it was on those trips that we were staying in wine towns. We stayed in La Rioja region in Spain, in Saint-Emilion in France, Loire Valley. And that kind of that opened new doors for sure. And I started wanting to learn more about wine, started buying a book or two to kind of learn my way around it. But still a beginner. But I mean, I guess by 2010, we'd done 4 trips abroad, and I stayed, followed the Douro Valley in Spain, stayed in the south of France and Burgundy, Loire Valley, kind of all over the place. I think Loire Valley, Cab Franc really struck a chord. There's really kind of floral, delicate wines. But it's gotten to the point now where I'm starting to realize why wines are different. I don't like to use the terroir word. I won't say it again. But the growing environment, how that affects the grapes. And the more I look into it, there's just so much more to learn yet. And of course, in 2013, I came out to Paso, stayed with a local girl. We've been chatting online for a couple of years. Ended up married in 2014. But on my first trip on vacation, of course, I'm a keen photographer, so Sculpterra with its artwork was a destination, and we came to Sculpterra twice on that trip. So when we came to look for work in 2015, after I moved here, it was one of the first places to apply to. So I think it's been awesome. So many new avenues for learning that I didn't see, didn't plan ahead for. They've just kind of happened over the years. I think it's been great.
Got your W set, is that right? What is the level that you've done? So
finally some kind of credibility to trying to put the knowledge into some kind of certificate. So the Wine and Spirits Education Trust has 4 levels. Second really is intermediate. It's broad reaching, but not kind of in depth so much. That gets more and more as you go up the levels, but I'm keen to do level 3 next. But I'd recommend it to anybody. You kind of learn more vocabulary when it comes to for talking about wine, describing it. But yeah, it is quite the rabbit hole.
Awesome. Well, great. No, and it's man. So you've really traveled a lot over Europe and seen quite a bit. So that's incredible. I know it's there's so much to see in our area, and obviously in South America and South Africa, Europe. I mean, there's a lot of wine throughout the world, and I encourage everybody, if you can take a Wines of the World class or get an experience, get the opportunity to taste wines from other parts of the world. You really learn a lot. You really have to taste a lot of wine. That's one thing. People ask me all the time. How do you improve your palate? How are you able to taste strawberry and blackberry and blueberry? And I think you have to really taste all the time. Some people have more taste buds on their tongue than other people, so they inherently can sense and taste more. But I also think you just have to keep trying, and then you have to teach your palate what is what. Well, this last episode that we did, the first episode, I was concerned about rain. Rain was in the forecast, and I was praying that it wouldn't rain. Well, it did rain. It was supposed to rain on Wednesday, and we didn't get any rain at all, which was great. So we thought we escaped it. I mean, we might have had a drop or two, but nothing substantial, nothing to knock even the dust off the ground. But the following day, Thursday, we had a few tropical storms, thunderstorms, whatever you want to call them, where we just had a downpour, and it was really unexpected. It wasn't raining in Paso. I talked to other people in the area. They didn't get any rain, but we had a couple downpours. So we did what we should do, and we sprayed or fanned air in the vineyard. Our main concern is Petite Syrah, Mourvedre, Primitivo, those grapes that are more susceptible to rot. So we wanted to air everything out, get the water off the clusters, and that seemed to work. We picked Primitivo on Friday. That came in at 27 BRIX. It soaked up to 27 and a quarter. So I was really surprised with that, because when we were sampling it, it was only coming in at 24 to 25. But I decided to just go ahead and pick it. So we brought some in. It was 27 BRIX. And then we picked again yesterday, Monday, and this next lot was it came in at 26, soaked up to 27. So it's turning out really well. I'm happy with Primitivo. It's really interesting. One thing I've noticed this over the years, when we crush the grapes, when we have the grapes in a half-ton picking bin and we dump them into our destem or hopper, you could smell certain things. You can smell when the grapes are vegetative or underripe, and you could smell when the grapes are maybe overripe or perfectly ripe. And there's a licorice smell that comes through that I've noticed on Cabernet. I've noticed it on all varieties. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say, but yeah, there's a licorice candied smell, and I've smelled that when the grapes are ripe and pristine, and that's what I've been smelling with Primitivo these last couple days of processing it. So I think it's one of our better years. It's when you're processing healthy fruit that's fully ripe, it's exciting. And then you're like, well, we have more of that to pick. We just got started, and it's coming out great. We've only picked half the block, and now we're going to pick the rest of it. So you just know it's like opening a Christmas gift. It's going to get better, and we have more of it. Like when you're making a lot of wine and it's a lot of good wine, that excites me. That makes me really happy. So yes, we did get rain, but luckily, I don't think it's having too much of an impact. I know in France, Darren, they get, they have good harvests and bad harvests, when they get hail, they get snow in some places, and they wreck the crop, right? I mean, that's what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, those Atlantic coast areas where you get the storms coming in, they start in the Gulf over here, and by the time they get over to the West Coast, France, they can be pretty damaging and really affect the harvest. And their variation in places like Bordeaux, Burgundy can be huge. We're so spoiled that it's generally we just don't get problems through harvest. We're great growing conditions out here.
Yeah, I forget who told it to me, but someone told me that what makes California special is we have a dependable summer. So we know it's going to be hot in the summer, and the grapes are going to ripen. Where in France, in particular, they don't have that. They don't have a dependable summer. They get rain all the time. I mean, we get rain during harvest, and it's this horrible thing. But I mean, in France, if it rains, just don't pick. Wait a couple days, let things dry out, and go pick again. But that's why when people talk about how French wines have good years and bad years, when you have a bad year in France, they don't harvest. When they have a good year, it means they made wine. When we have a bad year, maybe it didn't reach complete maturity, or we had a smaller crop size, but we're still making wine. We're still making good wine, maybe not to the expectation that we had wanted from the beginning. But in France, they miss entire years because of crazy weather.
Yeah. I've been in Bordeaux region in September with pools of water in my fingertips and my motorcycle gloves. So yeah, I know that very well.
Well, cool. Well, our last episode, I was going through kind of how I want this podcast to work and run, and we're going to talk about a few different topics each show. Like, we're talking about what's happening right now. We're harvesting grapes. We're in the middle of harvest. This is a super busy time, which I want to make time to do this podcast. This is important to me, and it's just busy, but we can do it. We can work hard and still have time to do an interesting podcast, and I have a lot to share. I want to talk about the world of wine. So this has been something that you and I, Darren, talk about a lot, which this is another reason why I wanted to start this podcast is young people. I still consider myself young. Almost 40 years old, 39 years old, but I still consider that I'm in that younger group. And, we need to find a way to attract young people to wine. And there was an article written in Forbes magazine. This article was back in January, but just some really interesting things, especially with the baby boomers. They're the ones that are buying most of the wine, obviously. They're in their 60s, 70s. They're getting old. So baby boomers are also, they're consuming, as you get older and older, maybe you consume less because of health reasons, that sort of thing. So we're hoping that the young people fill that gap. That's the main thing. And the millennials, Generation Z, but you, Darren, you were telling me about experiences and how, young people and how we all want an experience. We don't just want to go to a place and taste wine, but we want to experience it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's often, it's not just with wine, across the board, there's frequently this kind of disconnect between where wine comes from. And it's, I think it'd be really beneficial for younger generation to have an understanding of the work that goes into wine. We've got to have some kind of justification. If they're spending a lot of money on wine, it seems to be through that report. A lot of people they're buying beer, they're buying spirits, but not so much in the wine. And sure, a lot of it's expensive. So, and there's got to be some kind of justification for them to want to spend that kind of money for quality wine. And I think unless they've got some kind of understanding of what goes into it, why wine is so unusual in having this sense of place that so few other things do, I think that's an important part. And I think the wine industry as a whole has a responsibility to kind of impart this information rather than just go, here's a wine and that's it. Some kind of presentation, some information, some direction, I guess, for the next generation of tasters.
Yeah, and you said something interesting. You said that the industry needs to work together. I think the industry needs to get behind the idea and the truth that wine is healthy. Wine in moderation, with food, or wine on its own, having a glass of red wine at night, or it's in moderation. It could be a healthy thing, and we all need to talk about that. Wine's been drank for thousands of years, and a lot of young people are resorting to cocktails and spirits, and like you said, if they understood what goes on behind wine. And that's why we want to talk today and talk about what all the work that's involved, because I think once you learn about that, it really makes a difference. It really makes an impact. McMillan, who was being interviewed in this Forbes article, he said, "Wine is what young consumers want. They just don't know it yet." So that's what, like you were saying, Darren. If we can give people an experience of, wow, this is grape growing, this is winemaking, this is why this wine tastes dry, this is why this wine tastes sweet, or this wine has oak. If you really start to understand it, you're gonna want it. And wine tastes great. I said that during the last show, people asked me what's my favorite wine, and it's such a hard question because I like it all. I appreciate it all, and there's a lot to enjoy, a lot to pick apart. But the health benefits of wine, there's resveratrol. Have you heard of resveratrol?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is part of the anthocyanins that's good for your heart. It lowers your risk of heart attack. And this was a big push in the 90s. There was a lot of talk about this, that the phenolics in wines, the antioxidants, again, so if the wineries promote this, if the industry, the Wine Country Alliance, all the wine groups locally, near and far, if we all promoted that, wine is good for your heart, that would go a long way. I think it would go a long way, and, kind of get people back thinking about wine. Right now in the industry, a lot of there's a surplus of wine. We've had big harvests with more tonnage than we need per se. So there's a lot of great wine out there that people are selling at lower prices. So there's good opportunities to get into wine and learn more about wine. So, I'm gonna keep talking about other either health benefits or just wine trends. People ask me all the time, are we gonna make a wine slushy, or different ideas to attract young people? And those are fun, those are cool, but I think wine in itself has enough for you to get interested in. We don't need to be making high proof or whiskey or brandy. We want to make wine. I live in the vineyard. I work with the vines, work with the grapes. Wine is awesome.
Yeah, I think so. And drinking wine for what it represents, what it captures, rather than just the alcohol content, is, something that should definitely be encouraged. And again, it gives you that justification to want to explore new wines, new regions, and have an understanding of why they can be so different.
Yeah, and you're talking about experiences. One thing we're doing at Sculpterra, which I think you thought of, or you were obviously a big part of it, was we do reserve tastings and we do seated tastings where you get more of the story, and you get someone like yourself that shares, what's going on, and we bring out extra special wines, like the wines we're going to taste at the end of today's show. We're going to try some awesome library wines. But if you Darren, just want to talk a little bit about the reserve tastings that we do, which you give,
Yeah, so one of the things I handle at Sculpterra is the library. When we're down to the last few cases of a wine, we'll maybe set some aside and then release the newer vintage. So doing the library tastings, we do that during the week, allows you to try verticals, older wines that aren't on the regular tasting menu, and to try wines that have developed, because that's one of those things that makes wine so unique, is it's always in a state of change. Having a wine that's had a few years in the bottle develops new flavors, and it can be a great experience. So yeah, you can book that online, it's like tableside one-on-one service. I get it all dappered up for you, and we'll pour all the fancy stuff in the reserves, and then we do seated tasting at the weekends that often includes a library wine as well. Again, you can book that online or call if you have questions.
Fantastic. Yeah. Next, I wanted to just bring up again that our next event is the Harvest Festival. So this is on Saturday, October 18th, and next week's podcast, I've got Nesenia, who's the folkloric dance teacher, which my son is a part of the team. She's going to be here. She's going to talk about how she got into that. And then Pepe from La Parrilla restaurant, they're going to be our food for that day. He's going to be here, and they sell our wine at the restaurant. So we're going to have a nice conversation about how he's learning more about wine and how it pairs with Mexican food. And this is a really fun party. This has become one of our biggest days at the tasting room. A lot of people enjoy it. It's Mexican food, dancing. We have a DJ. It's always nice weather because now we're into fall, so it's not going to be 100 degrees. It shouldn't rain. The event's outside, and then we're going to have special wines, part of the tasting. So please come to that. It's free to come. There's no entrance cost. You don't have to buy a ticket. You just show up between 12 and 4, Saturday, October 18th. I'll be there. I'm going to say a little speech. It should be the end of harvest. It should be at that point. We might be waiting on picking Cabernet. Cabernet is typically the last grapes we pick, so we may be waiting on the Bentley Ironworks or Chivos or Bomba Vieja, but who knows? Those grapes are already at 23 bricks, and they've been going up about 1 brick a week, so it's going to be close. It's nice if we're done harvesting by the harvest party, because then the workers come and they can just relax and experience it and enjoy it. If we're still harvesting, they're tired and worn out, and they don't feel like going to a party. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be close, but this is a really, really fun time. So please come to that. Darren, do you want to say anything about the Harvest Fiesta? I know you've...
Yeah, it's normally good fun. We're often pouring the Edaway line of wines, which I think is great. The easy drinking stuff, a great dedication to the field crew. It's a good fun day.
Yeah, it's all about the workers. It's like I said, it's great when the workers come, because I have them raise their hand, have them stand up, recognize them, because it's hard to really imagine and describe just how hard work it is making wine, and picking grapes is an amazing exercise. I mean, you did it one time, or you might have done it a couple times, Darren. I mean, it's like being in the Army, being in boot camp. I mean, you're bending over, you're picking heavy 50-pound trays up and dumping it into the 1,000-pound bin, and it's if you do this every day, I mean, you're going to be in amazing shape. It is hard work, and again, I give tours on the property, and I think people start to understand it when they see all the work that's involved in growing grapes, making wine. Harvesting's fun, but it is tiring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, last time I helped with the vineyard in 2018, I think I couldn't move for about 2 weeks after that one pick. So I got a lot of respect for these guys. I'm not cut out for that kind of labor.
Yeah, no, it's quite the experience. When we pick, we're now picking or meeting at 2:30 in the morning. We start at 3 a.m. and then we finish by 8 or 9. So it's early morning. The grapes come in cold. That's the best way to do it. Well, this next section, I want to do too much information, TMI. So this is about me. Well, obviously we've been talking about me a lot of the show, but just some personal things here. I'm starting to play basketball. Darren, have you ever played basketball?
No.
You're not a basketball player.
Not since I was maybe 10.
Yeah, I played in junior high and high school, and my son Abraham he's 11 years old, and I'm gonna help coach his team this year. So there's actually a basketball court right here on Airport Road, and people show up there at night and start playing. So I love basketball. I love sports. A lot of my job now that obviously I'm the vineyard manager and the winemaker, but I have to sit down a lot for my regular job. So now that my son is, up and running around and wants to be active, I could be active with him. So we've been playing basketball. We also play golf and baseball, but we're getting into basketball season. So I'm very passionate about basketball. I'm really into the NBA, and I love going to games. So we're starting basketball, and that's going to help me to stay in shape. So excited about that. Animals in the vineyard. Okay. Can you make an animal sound, Darren? What's your best, can you do? Animals in the vineyard.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess we'll go with that.
This is where I get a little crazy, everybody. Yeah, so this was an idea that my son came up with, which every day when I come home from work, he says, "What did you see today?" And then I realize he's asking me what kind of animals I saw today. Because, as you know, we've got foxes and coyotes and bobcats, hawks, owls, snakes, frogs. We have lots of animals. And, that all kind of impacts the wine in some way, whether they eat the grapes or they're a nuisance. Well, 2 weeks ago, we were leaf pulling. Matilde was out there leaf pulling, where we remove leaves right around the clusters to get more light airflow into the clusters. she was doing it in the viognier above the tasting room, and she screamed. So I was like, okay, that's something's going on. And I was in the tasting room. It was early in the morning, and I ran up there. There was a gopher snake in the vineyard, in the vine, right where she was, right where her hands were, and it was not a harmful snake, not a poisonous snake, but freaked her out. She ran back. She got Ernesto, who's another one of our workers, who's on the Harvest shirt here. Ernesto, and he grabbed the snake and he moved it to a different part of the property, because these are the snakes that eat the gophers, so we like gopher snakes. But anyway, Ernesto, when he was doing that, he was telling me that when you see a snake in a tree, it means it's going to rain. And apparently he was right, because that was the day we got a touch of rain. So I don't know how he knows this. He was born in Mexico and learned a lot living outside on the ranch. But there was a snake in the vineyard.
I have to wonder what the basis of that is. Yeah. Okay.
Have you heard this
scared the
theory?
living daylights out of me.
Have you heard that snakes in trees mean it's going to rain?
No.
Yeah. Never heard of this. Learn something new all the time. But yeah. Animals in the vineyard, they're everywhere. We even have snakes in the vine. So, all right. We're moving on to nerd out on wine. Another fun concept I had, where this is gonna be a fun part of the show, because not every guest that I have with me is going to be a super nerdy wine fan or wine snob. They're gonna know about wine and enjoy it, but maybe they don't know as much as Darren and I. So I've asked Darren to talk about the difference between Syrah and Petit Syrah, which this is a question we get a lot at the tasting room, and people ask me all the time. They think Syrah is Petit Syrah, or is Petit Syrah the small version of Syrah? Are they the same? Are they different? So he found and researched some really great information. So would you share that, Darren?
Sure. Yeah. So I dived into the great files on the UC Davis website. And I've tried to kind of compile this into something that won't bore everybody to tears. But we'll kind of go through the basics, because it seems to be in the 1800s, they either didn't know or they didn't really care all that much what they had planted. We end up with mixed vineyards. Combine that with synonyms. So most grape varieties have various names for the same grape. So 1870s, we have Syrah brought over to California. 1880s, we have Petit Syrah, except Syrah was already named Petit Syrah in some vineyards. And then in the early 1900s, 1920s, when they started to kind of get more serious about what they had planted, they were starting to figure out that, well, some of these vineyards have Syrah or Palosin, Petit Syrah, Zinfandel, all just kind of bundled in together. So it's all been really kind of muddied, and I've tried to straighten this out. So it turns out that there's Dr. François Durif in the Montpellier University in the south of France. Nobody really knows whether it was an accident or whether he propagated this grape variety called Palosin with Syrah. It seems to be that he didn't know what the parent grape was, so it may well have been an accident. He coined the resulting variety Durif, or Plan du Durif, after himself. And by the time that was planted in California, let's say there's all these mixed plantings. Later on, people started to figure out that Palosin, also from the south of France, Petit Syrah are very closely related. It's only really, in the 1950s, we have the UC Davis, the Foundation Plant Services, such all put together. So they've been instrumental worldwide when it comes to grape research and vines, including then genetic testing in the 1990s. So now we've figured it out. So Syrah is an ancient grape variety from the northern Rhone. One of its Dureza is one of the parent grapes. And then this was crossed with Palisson later on and created what was called in France Durif or Plan de Durif. That's what we know now as Petite Syrah. But there have been various spellings over the years, the decades, with the Y, with a Y, with an I, two R's. And then, of course, Shiraz is a well-known other synonym for Syrah. But yeah, now we know, at least through genetic testing, what Petite Syrah is. Higher yielding, great variety, and Syrah is one of the parents. But of course, they vary in the vineyard, and I'm sure you can tell me a lot more about how they vary in the vineyard and what the similarities and differences are.
Yeah, what's nice is there's a big difference between them. Where Syrah makes a fleshy wine, plums flavor. I always think of plums and prunes with Syrah, but also it'll ripen earlier in the year. Where Petite Syrah, for most vineyards ripens late. Ours ripens like middle of the road, towards the middle of the season, because we prune it earlier. We get the ball rolling earlier on. Most of you know that Petite Syrah is used in blends because it gives you a lot of color, a lot of tannins. So it helps with mouthfeel, textures. So it's a good tool to have in the winery. But Petite Syrahs are bigger clusters, which is kind of odd. They can weigh a pound or more. I mean, these are huge. They have a boot part of the cluster, and they have the earring, and they've got the secondary part on the top. So it's a big cluster, where Syrah is probably a third of the size of Petite Syrah. So yeah, the vines look very different. The leaves are shaped differently. Obviously we farm them, a little differently depending on what we're trying to do, but both are great, and both grow well in Paso, which, I love to bring up to people all the time, that Paso can grow everything. Do we specialize in Cab on the east side and Zinfandel on the west side? Maybe. Is there more Syrah on the west, and there's more Viognier on the east? Yes, probably. But we can grow all these varieties. We can grow Cabernet, Syrah, Petite Syrah, Mourvedre, all in the same vineyard, and they all do well. That's one thing that I love about this area, and Petite Syrah is fantastic. In fact, we're gonna taste our double gold medal at the Central Coast Wine Competition. I remember it well, and it should be aging and tasting wonderfully. But before we get to that, I want to answer some questions from the mailbag. Mailbag time. So you have these questions, Darren. So basically what's going to happen, folks, is comment in this video below, ask questions. You can ask any questions. I talked about basketball. You want to talk about basketball? I can talk about basketball. But no, questions about Sculpterra, about our history, anything you want to ask, and we'll answer those on the air. So, but for now, I've come up with some questions that I typically get asked at the tasting room or when I'm out and about.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and that's something I'm still trying to put together as kind of like the timeline of Sculpterra. So it seems to be your dad started buying land back in the 70s. So you were what, 7 when they started planting the vines here?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, we started planting in 1993. I was born in 86. So yes, I was 7.
Okay.
And instantly I liked it. I love being outside. In fact, it's a beautiful day today. I mean, it's 72 degrees. The sun is out and clear, and I want to be outside. Like, this is killing me. I want to be outside. It's beautiful. But yeah, from a young age, I loved just playing, running around. We only had one TV station, which I like to tell people, because we didn't have satellite or dish or any of that. We had NBC, one TV station. So we didn't watch a lot of TV. We didn't spend a lot of time indoors. I have an older sister and older brother. I'm the youngest of 3. But people ask me all the time, when did you decide to be a winemaker? And I don't remember like a specific moment in my life where I said, I'm going to be a winemaker. I think it was, I wanted to try it. I did I made wines at Cal Poly and I did internships and so forth. But I think in 2008, when my dad encouraged me, and I owe him all the credit in the world, because he never pushed me into it. He never said, you need to do this. This is my dream, but I need you to walk through the door and do it. He encouraged me and said, Paul, I think you've got the right personality, temperament, work ethic to make wine. And I was nervous about it. Didn't you can learn about it. And we were talking about UC Davis, and you can read a lot about winemaking and wine practices and enology and viticulture, but until you've done it and experienced it, there's really nothing like that. And once I started making wine, it was just, wow, I love this. And I started to experiment. I think it's all about experimentation, because you say, well, I used yeast strain D254. Well, what if I used yeast strain D80? Is that going to put if we aged it longer? What if we racked it more often? So I just started thinking about all this stuff, and then I'm realizing I'm a winemaker. This is, I want to try. I wanted to make more and more wine and try different things. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go through a lot on this show about my past, my upbringing, how I got into it. I'll bring something new every time, something that you haven't heard before, but I love to experiment. And, I think wine hooks you where you're thinking about all the things that will alter the taste of wine. And I say it a lot, and I still believe this with all my heart, that the number one thing in wine is the quality of the grapes. You can't make good wine from bad fruit. So you have to start with good grapes. And I think that was obvious to me in those first few years of making wine, 2008, 9, and 10, where we have excellent grapes. It's like, if you just step out of the way, crush the grapes, add yeast, do your punch downs, pump overs, whatever you're doing, let nature take its course, so to speak, it's gonna come out well. And then keeping things clean, like if you've ever made beer before, I know in making beer, like everything has to be clean and sanitized before you use it, after you use it. Wine is the same way. You have to keep your equipment sparkling clean to prevent any spoilage, anything from affecting the fermentation. So, yeah, I know that was a long answer. I'm going on a tangent, but I think bottom line is I love to experiment, and on this show I'm gonna talk to you about all the experimentations that I'm still doing. I've been making wine for 17 years, and I'm still finding new products, new ways of doing stuff to make the wines better and better.
Right, yeah. Because I've always had these visions of you, because you would have been, 10, 11 when the fruit was ready, and they're probably just selling fruit back then. And visions of you riding the tractor and helping the crew, showing interest. Yeah, I think it's a great place to...
No, it was an awesome upbringing, and like you said, initially we grew grapes and sold our fruit to other wineries, and I never understood, what happens after we pick. I guess it goes somewhere and it ends up in a bottle somehow. I never knew that process. So, yeah, that's once you start making wine and then managing the vineyard. So then you start noticing, what, if we grow the grapes and we make the wine, we can control the whole process to the best of our abilities. Obviously, there's weather and things that impact what's going on, but that also hooked me. Being a grape grower and a winemaker at the same time, we can, make the wines the best possible way that they can be made.
Awesome. Sure. So, and I noticed your shirt. I know every year we have a different harvest shirt. So what's the deal with this one?
Yeah, thought this would be fun. I thought of this back in 2014, where, because we're all, us workers are together every day. We're working 12 hours a day sometimes, so it's long days. And I thought, it'd be cool if we had a harvest shirt. Like this is us, this is our crew. We have a harvest uniform, more or less. So everyone gets 3 or 4 shirts. It always has a Spanish phrase. We've got we've had échale, órale, different fun phrases. This one is todo puedes pasar. Todo puede pasar, which means anything can happen, which is very applicable, as you know, when you're farming. Anything can happen. You can get a flat tire. You could, have a breakdown. And, in harvest, you want everything to just work right. You want all the equipment to run, and things are changing day to day. We think we're going to pick these grapes, and then something changes, and we can't get enough people to help us, or it's going to rain, and we need to pick earlier than we thought. So anything's possible, possible good outcome or bad outcome. But whatever outcome happens, we're together as a team. So this is Ernesto Grande. We call him Ernesto Grande because he's big and tall, and he has his son, Ernesto Jr. And he's the mechanic of the group. So he can fix anything. He could do any job. He can drive anything. So having someone like him on board is it's really key, really helpful. And that's one of his ideologies. Anything can happen, but we can fix it, and we can get through this. We can get through it together as a team. So it's also interesting, like when I only wear these shirts during harvest, and even just like putting on the shirt every morning and getting into it, you start, okay, yeah, this is harvest. And it's just like, it gets you into the mindset, the feeling, the sensation, the thoughts. Like harvest consumes you. It consumes me. It's hard to do anything else when I get home, or hard to think about anything other than harvest. And this is a part of that. It's like, we're in harvest. Leave me alone. I'm in the harvest mode. No, it just takes over everything in your life in a good way, in a fun way. Okay, wonderful. Well, let's taste some wines. We've been talking about wine. Why don't we taste some wines? We're gonna try 2 wines. At the end of every show, we're gonna taste 2. Usually we taste a white and a red, but today I asked Darren what he thought, and since he's in charge of the library at the tasting room, where he keeps cases aside, wines that were almost sold out, wines that are tasting amazing that we hold back. We tell people that we're sold out of wines, but if they ask us enough times, we'll say, you know what, we have 12 bottles left of Mourvedre 2009, and it was our first vintage, or whatever it is. You need to taste it. So you want to introduce these wines, Darren?
Sure, yeah. So we got 2 wines here. We're going to start off with Maquette, French word for prototype sculpture, and it's Paul's take on the Bordeaux variety blend. I often hear people say Bordeaux style, but what is Bordeaux style? So this is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and on this one it was 8% Petit Verdot.
Yeah, that was one of the first years of the Petit Verdot vineyard. So it might have been the first year that we made Petit Verdot.
Right.
It's a 2018. Currently we're pouring Maquette 2021, and a lot of our wines are 2022 and even 2023. So we're going back in time to this harvest, to the 2018 harvest.
So and there's 2 cases left.
2 cases.
This very limited supply.
Maquette. Okay, Miguel, you're back there. Would you like to try a little bit?
Yeah.
Hop on over. Yeah, last episode you guys met Miguel. He's the owner-operator here at the Paso Robles podcast studios, and he's doing everything that you don't see. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you, Miguel.
Okay. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about last episode how, the first thing that you're supposed to do when tasting wine is you swirl the glass and you're aerating the wine, but you're also evaluating the look of the wine, the hue, the color, the rim, and if it's clean looking. Obviously this is an older wine, so it's lost a little bit of that bright red color, and it's picked up a little more oxidative brownish glow to it, but still has a really pretty color.
Yeah, it's kind of garnet. Still plenty of color left there.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you we have a lot of wine club members that keep our wines for a long time. So if you have Maquette 2018, hold on, we're going to tell you how it tastes. Yeah, I think this wine's holding up really well. It has a lot of body, and that's something that's always intrigued me. You know, as wines age, sometimes they get more body, more textures, more sensations. Where you'd think as a wine gets old, it starts to become more flat and starts to lose a lot. But a wine like this has a lot of presence.
Yeah, still plenty of balance on the palate.
Wow, very nice. Maquette 2018. Yeah, we make 5 different blends. We've got Reposé, Mega Focus, Statuesque, Maquette, and Figurine. So 5 different blends. 3 of them have Cabernet. As I said last episode, I love Cabernet. I think you could do a lot with Cab because it's a hardy grape. It's tannic and dry and astringent, but yet it has a lot of dark fruit character to it. Maquette.
So yeah, a lot of plum, a lot of cherry. Is there some French oak on this one?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, 14% new French oak. So there's a kind of clove tobacco thing. I love that from French barrels.
Yeah, you know, it's funny too because I spend a lot of my day with the young wine, either topping barrels or blending. So I taste young wine often. So when I get a chance to try our older wines, it's like I still get a lot of the same tastes and flavors, but then you get a plethora of other things coming into play. This wine is not done yet. You know, as I mentioned before, you know, wines have their peak. They have that curve where they get better and better, reach their peak, and then they start to develop auxiliary or post flavors where it's not bad, but they start to gain mouthfeel and texture. They lose their youthful fruit. This one I still think has a lot of fruit, so I don't think it's reached its peak. It's tough to say, but if you have an 18 Maquette, if you had 2 of them, you could open one now and keep another one for another couple of years and see how it changes. But a really great wine. I'm very happy with how it's aging.
Yeah, that fruit's still got plenty of freshness to it. Just a little of that tertiary or bottle aging development, which is where I'd drink it. It's probably sometime between now and the next couple of years, but yeah, I think that's phenomenal.
Okay, our last one for today's show is Petite Syrah, which is great because we've all the Petite Syrah. This is the 2019 Petite Syrah. I will pour it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Such a good color.
Oops. We're spilling wine, Miguel. I'm so sorry. Petite Syrah 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to spill one and the pouring, it's always the Petite Syrah. Guaranteed.
Okay. Yeah, so this is 19. So we planted this vineyard in 2005. The first crop was 2008. So at this point, it's 11 years old. But it's the 6th leaf, the 6th year we got grapes. So I think at this point, the vines are coming into their own. They're producing consistent taste and flavors. But if you were going to age any wine at Sculpterra, Petite Syrah is probably the best candidate for aging. Yeah, one thing I like to tell people when we're tasting Petite Syrah is it's almost a neutral grape, meaning it has character, it has fruit tones and herbaceous qualities, and sort of takes on whatever you're aging. So I always do a lot of new oak, a lot of American oak, which really gives you a lot of coffee, chocolate, smoke, tobacco, spicy notes. So to really impart well into a wine like this.
Yeah. You use barrels from AP, John, for this one? I seem to remember there was your favorite barrel that you use on the Petite often.
Those are amazing. Those are American barrels, but they're coopered in Australia. So they're Minnesota oak, Pennsylvania oak, Appalachian oak. They ship the oak to Australia. They leave the wood out for 24 months or 36 months to let them season in the weather. The rain will leach out the harsh tannins from the wood, and then they put the barrel together in Australia. So the climate of Australia with the American oak, it's a great pairing, and these are just fantastic barrels. They're not overbearing, they're not over the top. They just complement the wine beautifully. Yeah,
I love the color, the deep purple. That's great.
Yeah, very different from the maquette. This doesn't have the maquette had a lot of different textures all happening at once, where this one, like, you get a lot in the front, you get a little bit on the side, but then it's all in the finish. It has a nice long finish.
Yeah, there's a lot of tannin up front, but that fades and it's super smooth on the tail end.
And yeah, again, I mean, you really taste wine with your nose, and this wine has an incredible smell to it. Really developing nicely. Yeah, currently we're selling the 2020, what is it, 22 Petit Syrah?
22 current, yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got 23, which I'm bottling in February. That's going to be 900 cases. We bottle a 23 Petit Syrah. And I'm really excited about that wine. That was the year with all the rain and super ripe crop, and it's higher alcohol, but it has a lot going on. I'm really looking forward to the 2023 when we bottle it.
Yeah, I like how you treat the Petit Syrah, because it's not as, some Petit Syrah can be monstrous and be huge wine, but this it's more refined, I would say, than most Petit Syrah that I've tried. Very clean in style. Is there something in the production that makes for that? Is it because you're not doing like cold soak or anything with the Petit Syrah?
Yeah, we typically just do a 1-day cold soak and add yeast the end of the second day after it's been cold. Yeah, keeping it cold is really key, and I think picking it when it's cold, picking it early in the morning, getting it to the winery at the coldest temperature, getting it to in the 50 degrees, 55 degrees has a big help to it. Then we've got the yeast. So Percy yeast, which was only developed a couple years ago. I think it was derived in South Africa. Percy, that is a great pairing with Paso Petit Syrah. I think when you select which yeast to use on which grapes, it's really imperative to know like which yeast creates which flavors in which wine in which part of the world. So Paso Petit, as you know, it gets really hot in Paso. These grapes come in very sweet, can make more of a higher alcohol wine. So selecting the right having a yeast that will complement a hotter climate and kind of mask the alcohol is really key, and that's this yeast. This really does a good job with that. And then we like I said, aging it in mostly new oak barrels is really beneficial on the wine. And again, keeping everything as clean as can be, keeping the barrels topped. We don't rack the wine a lot. I think that's changed a lot too. I think in the early 90s or early 2000s, a lot of winemakers would rack wine every 4 months, every 6 months, where we only rack the wine one time. When I say rack the wine, I'm talking about where we pump the wine out of the barrels into a tank, clean the barrels, and pump the wine back in. So you just remove the wine and then put it back in. But the more you do that, the more you expose the wine to oxygen. So the less you do it, the more you're preserving the natural fruit flavor. But the less you do it, the more reductive the wine could be. So you do want to add oxygen to the wine at certain stages. You don't want to over oxygenate it. So I think racking it one time throughout its life in the barrel is also really key to preserve the flavors how they are.
Right.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, everybody. I know this has been a longer show. We've gone over a lot of topics, had a lot of fun doing it. So wonderful, yeah. We talked about Petit Syrah. We talked about, Harvest is obviously happening right now. Don't forget, our Harvest Festival is Saturday, October 18th. Again, next week, I've got some people that are helping me throw the party on. They're going to be here talking about their role in the party, so please tune in for that. Again, we're going to air these episodes every Friday. That's the goal. And we're doing it for 2 years. So 2 years, I have a lot to talk about. I can go over a lot about grape growing and winemaking and have a lot of fun doing it. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Darren. You did an excellent job. This was our first time doing this together. I mentioned in the beginning that I'm going to have Darren the last Tuesday of every month. So those Tuesdays might be longer shows because we'll get into more of the deep dive, nerd out on wine even more than we typically nerd out. So thank you, Darren. Thanks for being a part of this.
I'm going to have to do more research now, so I've got things to talk about.
Yeah. We have a lot to talk about. So thank you, everybody. Please leave us a comment and ask us a question, and we'll be happy to read it on the air.